Hi, and welcome to From Many People's Strength, the podcast that covers Saskatchewan politics and current events. My name is Cory, and my pronouns are he and him.
My name is David. My pronouns are they and them, or he and him. So,
and another 2-week break.
Another 2 weeks, and a lot of headlines to cover this week. So, I will try and be somewhat less of my verbose self. Maybe treat the headlines kind of like the quick looks as well as the quick looks, but we'll see. Sometimes the headlines are more interesting than the deeper looks. So
that's true sometimes. Yeah.
So there was a protest up in Saskatoon about the electric vehicle tax. We've already talked about this story, so the protest really doesn't change the story all that much. People are drawing attention to it. I'm hoping the protesters remain socially distanced and masked. I imagine they are from what I've seen. But and they talk about it, this idea that they're doing this to help pay for road maintenance because
nonsense, eh?
They're not paying for the road tax in the gasoline. And they the protester brought up the point. There's 403 registered electric vehicles. That's $60,000 in taxation revenue. This is not an issue yet, and they say, maybe 5-10 years from now, we do have to have the conversation about, how are we funding roads in that there was a taxation on gasoline? But that's with a lot of our sin taxes, we look at, where does revenue come from? Smoking is dropping, so we're losing revenue from that. Where do we start implementing additional taxes on healthy eating because people are moving away from things that are unhealthy? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about this is I think we should encourage the Sask Party to follow through on the next logical thing, and don't think of gas, electric vehicles as the alternative to gas. Just think of them as two separate streams. So all gas vehicles should have $150 a year additional tax to help pay for the electrical grid, right? Because they're not contributing to the electrical grid.
Yeah, so, that would actually pay for something.
Right? So maybe should we implement an additional $150 a year electrical grid tax on all gas-powered vehicles? Because that would generate revenue.
Yeah, that's right.
This is ridiculous.
But of course, there's no way that will happen because
no.
The voting base would be uproar about it.
Yeah. So no, it's I don't even know where to. This is just so ridiculous that
it's a very silly tax.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say.
It's classic. It's typical big government conservatives trying to pick winners and losers. Right? It's everything they say they're not, and they just want It's Trump style politics because it's not about actually accomplishing anything. It's about satisfying a base that wants to hurt people.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
It's not it's just let's stick it to the people we don't like.
Regina chiropractor charged with sexual assault. 2 women came forward on April 7th and April 14th about Dr. Ruben Adam Mans. And I say doctor, but he's a chiropractor, so I don't know where the line is there. But yeah, so this popped up in my feed. It's a headline that I thought was worthy of bringing to our attention. Not a whole lot to say.
No, there's not a lot to say.
Until more details are needed, I guess, at this point. But
anytime something gets to the point where charges are filed, it's serious and significant because we know that happens so rarely.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the rate of charges being filed, let alone convictions, let alone actual consequences, is so small.
Yeah,
and it's unfortunate. And I want to avoid my inserting my views around chiropractors because I don't have a super positive view about chiropractors.
No.
However,
this kind of thing
happens with real doctors too.
Yeah,
right.
That's
like
right.
This is not unique to a specific profession. Where you do see sort of the profession having an impact is when there is a systemic structure built around the individuals who allow it and hide it. And I don't know if that's the case here. Again, my biases around chiropractors have me suspecting that it is, but I know that's a personal bias. So
right.
I think, like I said, we said we're going to go through stories quickly, so I don't know how much we want to.
I would almost think that that would exist with real doctors too. Like there is that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That systemic patriarchal structure that exists within society. Really like this. The judge who visited the Saskatchewan Indigenous protest camp will face no action.
Good. Nor should he. We talked about this.
It seemed like he did nothing wrong. I guess we figured it just had to go through this count, this thing. There was 5 complaints against him, though we don't know who complained. And the council said he did nothing wrong. So
they said he didn't do anything wrong enough to have consequences for. They did say his behavior was inconsistent with the ethical obligations judges are sworn to uphold, but not serious enough to warrant removal.
Yeah.
The fact that it was after I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems odd to me that it's even considered inconsistent with the obligations of a judge, right? But again, I guess I'm not the one that makes these decisions and makes these judgments. But
and maybe I'm not understanding it. It's the fact that he went after his ruling,
right? Therefore, it couldn't inflict anything on it at all.
Yeah. So that's still what has me puzzled, and it had me puzzled when the story first came up. And I haven't had a chance to talk to any lawyer friends about why that would be. But maybe when our podcast is done, I'll toss this story up on my Facebook and say, "Hey, lawyer friends, who wants to explain me a thing? Please,
why was this wrong?
If you are willing to give me some of your free emotional labor,
that's right.
please explain me a thing." But no, anyways, it's it's good. Good that he's not being removed. Strange that it's considered inconsistent, but that may be one of those letter of the law things, and the review panel basically went, we have to say something, but we're not gonna have inflict consequences. So.
I suppose there might be something that says that even after a case is done, a judge isn't supposed to interact with any of the participants in it. So maybe that's all it is. Saskatchewan Crown Corporation executives take potential 6 to 25% pay cut. The Saskatchewan government announced Thursday it will be reducing pay to its Crown Corporation executives starting in fiscal year 2021-22.
So what it is they're changing the structure of the compensation package. So they're doing a reduction of the holdback eligibility, which is a form of executive compensation. And I get sort of the mentality by wanting to shift it. When they announced it, they're tying it to the pandemic. They're saying, our Crown executives are important and blah, blah, blah. We really appreciate them. However, they're getting paid too much considering there's a pandemic going on. Which, maybe. I mean, maybe. We're dealing with, at this level of compensation, you are dealing with data that is going to be behind closed doors, so I can't see the data. Like when you're dealing with minimum wage or median wage or what have you, and you're dealing with salaries of people who are making $50,000 a year, I can look at data like that. That data exists on
right.
the Stats Canada website. That data is everywhere. There's data around executive compensation, but the peer-to-peer like compensation modeling that I'm 100% sure someone is doing, that's proprietary, right? They're not releasing that. Executive compensation is complicated. It's, it is very popular to say executives get paid too much, but it's one of those by what metric?
Right.
Like, if you are hiring again, is the very best basketball player in the world worth $50 million more than the 10th best basketball player in the world? Because there's that sliver of a performance difference, right? Like it's the 100% to 99.99% as good. In a lot of cases, for executives, you're kind of dealing with similar things. Are the best executives really that much better? But if an executive can squeeze out an extra 0.1%, rate of return on your annual income, that's probably is worth. I don't know what their annual income is for any of these crowns, but if they are good enough at what they do to squeeze out an extra 0.1% productivity, that probably is worth a fair bit of compensation in the model that we have now.
Right.
So
they say they're going to save $1.82 million per year by doing this. So, and it applies to 54 executives at 8 Crown corporations.
Like I said, we're going to say 1.82 million, where you will find out, and we probably won't find out, but where someone who can see the numbers behind the scenes will find out whether it was worth it or not is 5 years from now when they look at the retention data, right? Did you lose a top level executive to a private company? Did they leave their position with a Crown to go to a private company, and now the Crown is performing not as well because of it? Like I said, I also don't know what the labor market is right now for
executives,
top level executives. Like I don't have my finger on the pulse of the executive job market right now. No one wants to hire me to be their CEO. So
yeah, that's right. I pick things up and I put them down. That's what I do. So,
don't get me wrong. I would take, even with the pay cut, I would still take $111,000 a year.
It's good pay
for doing what they're doing. But this, I guess that's the other thing too. This isn't the 11 million a year compensation package that the CEO of McDonald's gets, right? So 111,000 is good money. It's fair compensation, but we're not dealing with the millions and millions per year. So
they're paid well, but they're not multi-millionaires every year. So
right. So yeah, that's average too. So like if we're talking with 54, that's the CEO of each Crown is probably at the higher end of the spectrum, and like whatever the lowest junior VP is probably down around 80, right? So
right. Seems like pretty good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like that's good money. Good money, but like again, you're dealing with people who I would wager of the 54, probably 50 or so of them have an MBA, which isn't cheap. Like that's a $60,000 degree or whatever it costs nowadays. Like it's not a cheap degree to get, and you're not quite dealing with the same level of education, time, and expense as a doctor, but like probably relatively close for some of them, if not more for some of them, actually. So
the feds, the province, and the city of Saskatoon combined for a over $100 million infrastructure boost, which, I mean, 102 million is over 100 million.
Correct. That's how math works.
So good for them.
No, it's good. It's apparently green infrastructure. So 3 primary projects. No,
it's
exciting.
Good. Like I'm more green projects in the provinces makes me happy.
Yeah.
So
So they're talking about the Meewasin Valley Authority is getting a good chunk. They're in the middle of a $23 million fundraising campaign. So this is probably, really, really good news for them. The large scale solar plant, that sounds exciting. Like, infrastructure is an investment. Like this green infrastructure, especially, is an investment.
Nice long term.
Maybe some of this could be funded by that tax on gas powered cars.
That's right. Yeah,
150 a year tax on gas powered cars can pay for this.
What percentage of 102 million is 60,000? Not a very big percentage.
But it's also like, it's stuff like this is probably what you have to do to get the province in on stuff. Like the province is covering about a third. The feds are 41.1 million. The city of Saskatoon itself is 25.8, and then the province is 34.3. So glad they were all able to agree.
We're
gonna get some gas recapture at the Western Development Museum, some new roof on a curling rink, solar plant, some hiking trails.
It's all good.
A lot of good things.
This one's fun.
Yeah.
Nothing burger, hysteria, and reprehensible attack. Sask cabinet minister and critics square off.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Harrison is the jobs minister for the Sask party. Alina Young, the jobs critic. And frankly, I enjoyed this. I like the way that she doesn't pull any punches.
No. Yeah. Zero fucks to give. Like that's,
I think he is doing a terrible job, but
they're both were being pretty blunt in their comments on each other. So
okay, so obviously the Sask party is very dismissive of any criticism coming from the NDP. They say rather silly things. They dismiss bad or good ideas and good criticism out of hand, and laughed when they said, like the NDP said, that they'd be over budget. And Harrison's response to being called the worst jobs minister in Canada, responded incredulously, "Oh my goodness." I don't know if maybe it's just my perspective, but I picked up a bit of a condescension, right? Like,
yes,
she's young. He's an older gentleman. She's a young woman. And I don't know, it seemed like pretty condescending and kind of like sexist and a little bit ageist. To me anyway. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading into it, but
yeah. And one of the things, like, some of her comments were, if I'm looking at them neutrally, probably went too far, right? Like if they were said by a Sask party person about an NDP government,
right?
Like if a Sask party opposition member referred to a budget as a nothing burger of a budget, I would probably think they were being childish.
Yeah, that's right.
The fact that it's someone I agree with sort of has my partisan cheerleader mentality kicking in a bit. So
that's fair.
That being said, maybe I'm just second guessing myself more than I should be. And he is just being a dick and she's being passionate. I don't know. Like that. One of the things that I do sort of want to address that goes a little bit beyond, just using flamboyant language on both their parts. So she didn't say, he's a horrible person, or she didn't say that he's unethical or lazy or anything like that. She says, by the numbers, he is the worst minister.
Right.
Like, she's very specific that she's talking about his performance, not his character, I think. And perhaps my bias is coming in, but it really does, like, when I'm looking through them, and like his comment, the NDP has zero credibility with our business community, and that's why they have virtually zero seats. A little bit of a low jab, but still, like, I would say most like saying they have no credibility with the business community. That's still more or less around the party's performance and not a character attack.
Right. Yeah.
So where I find it frustrating is the conservative movement in general lately, but the Sask party in particular. No, this is not them in particular. This is just sort of this idea that they really, really want to be victims.
Oh, yeah.
Like, absolutely do they want to. And they always accuse the left of victim culture, right? Like, that is first and, like, there could be someone, shot and killed. And when people say, okay, that's a bad thing. Oh, you're making a victim of the guy. Like, no, he was shot and killed. He was literally a victim. But however, he's doing this. I'm very disappointed in that member who yesterday attacked the character, attacked the integrity, and attacked the professionalism, and attacked the work ethic of professional public servants with decades of experience working in that sector, who are doing all they can to promote Saskatchewan's export and interest.
But she didn't do that, right?
Right. Like, you're not a victim. Like,
that's right.
She's not attacking your character. She made a jab, and maybe he's referring. She made a jab about how he hasn't worked in the private sector in over 20 years.
She did. She did say that he hasn't had a real job.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, you can argue whether or not being a politician is a real job on a variety of levels. Yeah. But if you go out into the oil field and you talk about Justin Trudeau, politician isn't a real job.
No, absolutely not. It isn't, right? So, like, that you can't. You can't have it both ways. You can't say liberal politicians and NDP politicians, liberal with a small L politicians,
right,
don't have a real job, but the conservative ones do. Like, if you're again, we've talked about this so often, right? If you're setting the rules, you got to play by them. Your team literally set the rules. And now you're complaining the rules are unfair. That's a little.
It shouldn't be how things work.
Yeah, and like, that's not a reprehensible attack on our public servants. That was criticizing you, buddy. Like,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, the three. Just to go over the numbers a little bit, like Statistics Canada shows the labor force grew by 3,000 people in Saskatchewan from January 2021 to February 2021, but we have 23,000 fewer people employed than we did last year this time.
Yeah.
And the minimum wage is still the lowest in Canada at $11.45 an hour. Yeah. We have it's not just that people there aren't enough jobs for people. It's that the jobs that are there, we have no incentive for people to get them because the pay isn't good enough.
Right.
So.
Yep. No, it's like, objectively by the numbers, he's not doing a good job.
Right.
And like, for however many years, the Sask party, like, that's the thing. Not just the Sask party. Governments take credit for when things are going well when they're in power. Yep. And they, like, the buck stops everywhere but with them when a conservative is in charge. So, and don't get me wrong, like, left-wing governments obviously don't stand up and go, woohoo, we're screwing up when mistakes happen.
Right.
But just accountability just really is never. Accountability has not been the strong suit of right-wing governments for at least 30 to 40 years, to a measurable extent against, when compared to the left. Like, it is. Again, I hate to say objectively when I am obviously so very subjective, but you can look at accountability and you can look at metrics on how often they take credit for things and how often they try and shift the blame for things or take responsibility for things going wrong. And you can see pretty measurably a difference in the ethical framework. And it's the rhetoric and the actions just don't line up.
Yeah. An anti-mask billboard in Estevan prompts controversy and calls for removal. The sign owner, Future, says billboards will not be removed at this time.
Yeah.
And it's, like you can see it there. It's a big sign that says unmask our children. It's a digital blackboard or billboard. I don't know. I know Ryan Miley called for the removal of this, and apparently stating that he thinks it should be removed by the company who owns the billboard is enough to get the free speech warriors out, and saying that, you know, that he crossed the line and this is government censorship. But
honestly, like with it being Ryan Miley saying it, they almost have a point on that one. I've been like, it's when the government steps in that you start that it does start being censorship. He's opposition rather than in party or power.
Yeah.
That being said, the other factor is that, like, we don't have the Bill of Rights with all 20 some odd amendments. We have the Charter of Rights with a number of sections, and Section 1. Number 1, the very first thing we got is the reasonable limits clause. Every single right is subject to reasonable limits. So, is promoting.
That was one of my arguments, was that this could I don't know if it does or not. Like, this is a debate that you need to have. You can't just say this is censorship, right? It has to. We have speech within limits. And does this fall within those limits? Is this harmful?
Well, if the government requires it being taken down, it is still censorship. At that point, it is still censorship. Is that a reasonable application of censorship?
Right.
Like, it is a restriction of free speech if the government says, no, you can't have it. Like, 100% cut and dry. If the government says you need to take this down, 100% that is a restriction of free speech. Where the question comes in is that a reasonable suspension of free speech? Because we have lots of those.
That's right.
So,
it sounds like so far the billboard is still up.
The billboard's still up. They painted over. If you look at the sign, there's a separate ad for SaskTel and Jump.ca. That got painted over because SaskTel and Jump.ca said, "This isn't our sign. Please paint over our logo."
Right.
Because they were getting like flack. It's like, no, we don't own the sign. We were advertising a separate ad on this sign.
And we are no longer advertising.
We are no longer advertising on that sign.
Yeah.
And like, maybe this is one of those ones where the free market gets to be the one that decides, and just companies are going to stop advertising with this sign company, and not because of public boycott, like because of what happened to SaskTel. Like, I don't even think you have to go, if you're advertising on future signs or whatever the name of the sign company is, we won't buy from you. It's the company going, oh shit, what else might they put up? Am I gonna pay for an ad on this sign, and next week there's gonna be a white supremacist digital ad underneath our billboard? So like there
is a lot of crossover between the anti-mask movement and the white supremacist movement.
Like virtually concentric circles on a Venn diagram, right? Like there's not a lot of there's not, if you take the circles, there's not a lot of like space on the outside of those two circles on the Venn diagram. Right. That's pretty overlappy. There's future signs. So it is what it is.
Something that I find interesting is that there does seem to be a lot of money invested in like the anti-mask movement. Like there's signs around, like the anti-COVID movement. There's a lot of people putting billboards up and signs up in various places. Like even in Regina and Saskatoon, you'll see billboards about Dr. Shahab lied and stuff like that. Yep. And you just got to wonder, like, who's spending this money? Why would you? I don't think the people who are running these protests have jobs. like they're just walking around, traveling around province to province, speaking about the evils of masks.
Yeah, bizarre. I will, because we often don't give Mo credit where credit is due. Right. I'm going to simultaneously give credit to Mo and even further shake my head at the Freeze Peach Patrol. Mo said almost exactly the same thing Miley did.
Oh yeah.
Neither one of them actually says that the government should step in. So like Miley says it's awful. people shouldn't, it makes zero sense to be having people advertising against laws and against public safety. I understand people are stressed and fatigued, but why you'd be out there spreading propaganda makes zero sense. Not saying the government should step in, just saying this is ridiculous. Mo then says, I don't have a lot of time for people that are trying to advocate for others to break the laws. Right. Almost word for word what Miley says, right? Like, and I think that billboard is also advocating for kids not to be masked, which is possibly even a bit more troublesome. Like, Mo is also speaking out against the sign. Neither one of them actually said the government should step in and censor it. Both have said it's bad. Both have referred to it as advocating for people to break the law. Both are saying it's putting children's lives at risk. And the Free Speech Patrol loses their mind over Miley, but gives Mo a pass.
Yeah, of course.
But and to Mo's credit, he is speaking out against it. So good. The positive part about Mo is he is also saying the sign is bullshit. Because the sign is bullshit.
Exactly. And apparently Future Sign says the billboard will stay, and told CBC that they've got 5 times greater positive messages than negative responses, which
weird, but okay.
I assume that's because people who are negative about that kind of thing are just looking at it and going, fucking idiots.
Yeah.
And moving on with their day.
Perhaps. I'm surprised by that, but maybe I'm taking it with a grain of salt. But
yeah. Shame on you, Future Signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is come and gone at this point. But Premier Mo says Ontario anti-mask protesters should stay out of Saskatchewan. He did come and he did go.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was one of these cases where I wanted to give Mo credit for calling out this Chris Sky, who is going across the country promoting anti-mask bullshit.
Yeah.
So
it's good for Mo. It's ridiculous. I'm glad Mo and Miley seem to be in agreement on it. This guy's an idiot and he should stay away, and then he didn't. And again, you can't legally prohibit a specific person. If he's breaking the laws, you can arrest him. The police were monitoring for non-compliance. And I'm the last person who wants police arresting people willy-nilly.
But frankly, I don't want this guy around.
No. I don't think you need police involved. I think fines, we don't need our police to be fining people.
That's true. No, that's definitely true.
I think we underestimate the coercive power of the state and how powerful it is beyond just police. Because the state has a lot of power. The state can say, we're fining you $10,000. Oh, by the way, if you don't pay it by such and such a date, we're taking it out of your bank account.
Yeah.
And
they can just take it.
They can just take it. They can just reach into your bank account or credit union account and take your money.
Yeah.
They have that power because they're the ones that regulate the banks. And you know what? If you keep cash in in your mattress, sure, you can maybe for a while avoid them. But where are you living? At a certain point, you're it destroys your they can send it to collections and then it's on your credit history, so you can't rent an apartment or buy a house. Don't get me wrong, I don't want the state creating more homeless people.
No.
But the government has a lot of power to fuck with people, and not just the police. I know you are not a big fan of big government, and I try and limit my belief in big government. But we don't need someone with a gun to stop yahoos like this.
No, that's true. But I wouldn't mind tasering him.
Viscerally, I still not.
Cargill to build $350 million canola crusher in the Regina area.
Yeah.
So that's a good project. Yeah.
Yeah. I like canola.
Sure.
Pretty, bright and yellow. Scroll down, you'll see the bright and yellow. I bet you'll see it, and it's bright and yellow.
Yeah. And you can drive through Saskatchewan during the summer and see that all over the place. It is quite nice. But
I have the classic boomer dad, who is also an agrologist. So
okay,
it's like we could not like we're driving on road trips. He would point out every single crop that we would drive. Oh, that's canola. That's soybeans.
Oh yeah,
more corn. Oh, that's unusual. They're growing whatever it was. Like every road trip, it was the commentary on every single grain crop that we went by. But anyways, canola's pretty. Processing, I like jobs.
Supposed to open. Construction starts next year, and it should be open by 2024. They say.
Yeah.
So
and again, anytime you are having an industry like an economy that's heavily weighted in primary industry, having secondary industry come in is positive. So processing, manufacturing, that's good. It lets us process canola here rather than shipping it somewhere else to be processed. Which, left-wing perspective, better for the environment because you're not shipping it somewhere and then shipping it back again. You're processing it quickly and less transportation costs and smaller carbon footprint. I won't say that too loud because conservatives might
because they might charge them extra an extra $150.
But no, it's a good thing. It's great. So there's still you're always going to deal with the fact that the agri-food industry is very top down. There's a lot of there's not a lot of diversity. That's not the right word, but you have a very small ownership group. Cargill is a massive agri-food business. I still have concerns about that. There's all of those already built-in concerns about the agri-food business in general. And none of this negates that. But this doesn't make it worse either. So
no, that's right.
Johnny McDonald statue removed from the park. We've talked about this twice. They finally did it.
Yeah,
it's good. Maybe the snow. This is the one bright spot of the snowstorm that we had out of nowhere. It probably meant there weren't as many people there being twits.
Yeah, that's right. It got quietly removed.
Yeah. So if it was a nice day, more people would have seen it and made a big stink about it. Yeah, no, it's good. Don't know what more to say. We've already talked about this a lot. I think it's great. Big statue, 1,000 pounds, half a ton, heavy equipment. Now, what do we do with it? Put it in a museum. Talk about his legacy. In a holistic fashion, rather than just a plaque that talks about how great he is. Yeah. Acknowledge some positive contributions, but at the same time, also, a monster.
Yeah. And you can actually say that, with a full board beside him or whatever.
Sure, exactly. Right. If it then gets put into a museum, you can absolutely talk about it in greater context. It's a more appropriate spot than in a park.
Yep. All right. Next is an online system to reduce court appearances for traffic tickets in Saskatchewan.
Hooray!
Coming online right away. So
I've talked about this. I remember I had a ticket a number of years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. And I was told, hey, no, go down to the court, ask for it to be reduced. And they usually will. I'm like, okay. And it ended up using up 2 full days, full days of my life fighting this. And I wasn't even fighting it. In retrospect, had I known, I wouldn't have bothered. I would have, because it got reduced by $100. But and that's what they I actually think that was an intentional feature, not a bug. I think that was working as it was supposed to. So I am pleasantly surprised by them making it faster. I assume, I honestly think they made it as inconvenient as possible in order so that people wouldn't fight tickets.
Yes.
Because, it's not worth I was fortunate in that I didn't have to use up vacation hours because I had a flexible enough job where I could set my own hours at the time. Right. I'm like, all right, I'll work Saturday this week. And, went down and But yeah, it was a nightmare both days. And I've heard the same thing from others.
I recently, so I got a speeding ticket back in September, and then I was supposed to go to court for it in December, and then it got postponed until April, which is technically tomorrow. But now it's been postponed again because of this new outbreak until September again. So by the time I go to court for this ticket, it's going to be a full year since I got the ticket.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't plead not guilty on on this website thing system, but you can do other things. So that's good.
Yeah. So it probably It still probably is a nightmare for people who want to actually fight the tickets. But maybe less of one because some of the things will get offloaded to another part of the system.
The nice thing I think about this is that it's going to be one of those extensions on the payment due date and stuff like that. You don't have to go in front of a judge and ask for more time.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next.
$60,000 water bill.
Woof. Saskatoon strip mall businesses face collective $60,000 water bill. Oh, wow. I read this and I was just like, so there's a leak somewhere in this strip mall that they couldn't find right away. And ultimately all these businesses collectively owe for it. And that sucks.
Yeah.
Like this Murray's Sewing is on the hook for more than $4,000. And during a year when she hasn't had that high of an income.
Yeah. What I do find weird about this is if it's all, and again, I haven't seen obviously I haven't seen the lease. But if it's all of the companies getting hit, that tells me it was an infrastructure issue, further upstream, as it were. Yeah. It's not it wouldn't be the individual tenants at this point. So Artis REIT should be on the hook.
You would think so, but without knowing more about their lease,
exactly.
That was one of the things that really struck me, is because apparently all these businesses, except for Extra Foods and Shoppers, have they share a water bill sort of thing.
Right. And
then so somehow before it even got to the building, all of these, or even got to these individual businesses, the water bill got skyrocketed. So
which I
don't know.
A REIT is
they
essentially
said they had an inspector in to take a look at the see if they could find a leak, and they didn't find anything. And now,
and a REIT is kind of like a mutual fund, right? It's a real estate income trust. So it's effectively a company that just is a way of people investing in real estate, similar to how you would invest in stocks with a mutual fund. So it's going to be a very hands-off landlord. There's almost certainly a property management company as the middleman.
Right.
But again, the only thing that I could see is if there was issues with the metering in the past and they were undercharged for a number of months or years, right? This is all of a sudden there was a misread meter 2 years ago. It got recorded at a certain amount, and then now it got recorded correctly, and you're now paying for 4 years worth all at once or something. That happened to be on my personal gas meter. It just all of a sudden got a surprise and oh, oops, we misread it the last time we did a reading, and now because I was I'm set up on equalized payments. Why did my equalized payments triple?
Right.
Oh, well, we misread it when we first set them up. Oh, okay, thanks. And then after a year, it'll go back to normal again. So it sucked. But
that happens to me every 3 months with Sask Power.
So it may be something like that, right? But
every single time I get an actual meter reading, my bill is way higher, and I'm like, oh geez, I should have been submitting my bill meter readings all the time. I feel bad for them. I don't know if they have any legal recourse.
The article sort of goes on to say they don't really. The only legal recourse they have is if they find out one specific tenant caused the issue,
right?
Then the other tenants could sue that tenant.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, a lawyer said they could look into insurance to see if there was a possible insurance claim. But
Yep, that sucks.
It does suck.
Okay, so the next one. Regina Council unanimously approves a $4 million land sale despite opposition from nearby businesses. The nearby business was the co-op refinery. They sold a 250 hectares of land north of the city, which is adjacent to the refinery. And the refinery was at the meeting, at the city council meeting, saying, hey, we were going to use that. We're totally buying this True North oil or whatever the hell it was called. True North. But they were all mad. Yeah. So this is how things go, I guess. Like if you don't have an agreement ahead of time, then...
That's capitalism, right? Like that, like if you don't buy something and someone else buys it and then you're mad because you wanted to buy it.
Whoops.
What
else can you say?
To be you? I don't know. Yeah.
I just was going to say, like, after I found out this, it has been released since this article, I believe, that it was Viterra that bought the land. So they are going to set up something that they do things with. Grain, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. That's interesting. Weird. The one thing I think that is a bit of an issue is if this is, and it looks like this is, city-owned property that the city is selling, that there wasn't a proper bidding process. So like FCL talks about how it wanted to be offered the chance to take part in a bidding process.
Right.
And that door was swiftly closed by the council's vote, is sort of the wording. So they may have a point there.
Apparently it's under market value for the land.
Yeah, but the council basically said because of the economic opportunity generated by it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. It also has a buyback clause. So essentially, if the developer does not break ground in 2 years, the city basically goes yoink, gives them their money back. And
which is just a $50,000 fee, right?
Well, no, the city basically the city gives them $4 million. Yeah. Okay, so they've given a $4 million option to purchase. So they've given $4 million to the city. That's not the whole purchase price. That is, they've basically given $4 million to the city. If they don't break ground in 2 years, the city goes, here's $3,950,000 back. So the city keeps $50,000 of it, gives them the rest of their money back, and then takes the land. Yeah. Basically says, we're going to charge you $50,000 for wasting our time, and we'll take
and now we can
back.
sell it to whoever.
Yeah, and now we can sell it to Federated Co-op. Which honestly, the fact that Federated Co-op's making the stink that it's making is probably a good thing for the city in some ways, because they don't have to take it back after 2 years. And if the company chooses not to break ground within 2 years, you probably would have a bit of a back and forth on city council where they go, do we really want to take it back? Like,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to have that debate. But if it's oh no, we know for sure there's a buyer.
Yeah.
Although we'll see what Federated Co-op does in the meantime, right? They may come up with their other
right. They
options,
said something on during the city council meeting that they were purchasing this True North renewable fuels on the assumption that they would be able to buy this land, and now that they can't buy this land, they might have to take back this purchase of True North renewable fuels. So I don't know how that's going to work. That's up to us for them to figure out. But
it's just what they say, what happens when you assume. So, anyways, it's a weird story, but it's again, I don't have a lot of sympathy for FCL at the moment.
No, and I mean, I don't want to assume, but it seems like potentially some of the behaviors that they had in the past might have impacted the lack of consideration that the city council had in this. So,
and it'll be interesting to see what the economic development is that's happening there. you have the Cargill with the canola, the Vitoro with whatever this turns into being. Secondary industry around agriculture. Like, people are like, we can talk all we want about oil and gas and whether it's going to go up or down and what's going to happen in that industry, but people are always going to need to eat.
Yep.
Canola ain't going anywhere. Viterra ain't going anywhere. So
no, that's right.
New vaping laws.
New vaping laws in Saskatchewan aimed at lowering use among young people. I don't know.
Vaping's complicated. It's is this maybe a better metaphor for the electric car thing? I don't know.
Maybe.
Am I falling on the other side of it on this one? It's one of those things where, like, my views on harm reduction are usually that harm reduction is good. Vaping is better than smoking.
Yep.
But it's
still
worse
not good
than not doing anything.
Yeah.
And what started as a tool to help people get off of smoking, there are now people who are vaping who have never smoked.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and not a small number. Right. Which that's not how the product was pitched initially. Now, whether the manufacturers always had this in mind, that's another story.
It's interesting that, like you say, like a device that was designed initially for smoking cessation is now having like multiple shops all over the city with just that as their focus, with different flavors and different styles of vapes and this and that and the other thing. Like, it's a whole industry now on its own.
Yeah. And like,
young people are into it. Like, they really are. It's everywhere. My, not to call out my daughter, but she has friends who have vapes. I don't know how they got them, but they're 15 and they smoke these vape things. And it's, and she asks me, well, what do you think of them? And I think, well, don't do it.
Like,
this is bad for you. Like, it's not as bad as smoking, but it's not good.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the same arguments against, right? Like, it's bad for your health, bad for your wallet.
Yep.
Maybe this is my Gen X aesthetic coming in. The one area where it is worse than cigarettes is you look like a dork while doing it. I don't know, man. Like, again, Gen X, X aesthetic views. I'm sure there are younger folk who are like, no, people who smoke look stupid. But I don't know.
At least
Humphrey Bogart with a cigarette
cool.
Still to me looks cooler than anyone with a vape. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Not
encouraging smoking to look cool either, but
no, also don't do
sigh.
It's I don't know if this is
one of those ones
much,
too where it's, Canada has the reasonable limits clause. We have reasonable limits on what private entities can do. So I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that it is within reasonable limits to say you're not allowed to sell ice cream and bubble gum flavored tobacco products.
Yeah.
Like, that to me does not seem like products that are very intentionally marketed to children that children shouldn't be using.
Yeah.
And yes, there are adults who like ice cream flavored vapes. I'm sure of it.
Of course.
And that kind of sucks.
But that doesn't change that this bubblegum flavor is aimed at youth.
Yeah, that's...
First Nations group calls for security guard to be fired following arrest at Saskatoon store. The video shows a guard pinning and attempting to handcuff a woman in the parking lot. So the head of one of the largest First Nations groups in Saskatchewan says he's angered after seeing the violent arrest of an Indigenous woman by a security guard in Saskatoon and is now calling for the security guard to be fired. Chief Bobby Cameron of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, which represents First Nations across the province, says the incident, which was captured on video, is just one instance of violence Indigenous women face. It is a symptom of a larger issue in the province. And I think that by and large, he's right. Like, this is, I don't think it's as likely to end with this kind of violent situation if it was a white woman or even a white dude or,
this would never happen to me.
Right.
No, like if I was shoplifting, this would not happen to me. A security guard would not do that. Especially if I was like, if I'm looking like I look now, if I'm wearing a collared shirt and a tie and I'm in a, I guarantee you this would not happen to me. I heard an interesting, it was on the TikToks. No, there's a TikTok the other day. And I believe it has gone viral, where the one guy was saying, like, it was around privilege, and he said, someone once asked me, what do you do with the receipt when they offer you one at the store? He said, if they say, would you like a receipt with that? And he said, if I have the choice, I always say no. And I was talking to my black friend, and he's like, I would never say no. Like, what? And they were like, it was just different realities, because I have to be able to prove that I purchased what I purchased. And this sounds like it is a case where she actually did shoplift. It's not a case where it was a mistake, but it was not a case where they had mistakenly thought someone shoplifted where they hadn't. I believe. Like that is not the alleged that is not being alleged as far as I had read. Yeah.
Here part of the article is like they talk about whether or not he's allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know the actual law regarding security officers or whatever, security guards, but I think as far as the law is concerned, they're just citizens. And you have to have a police officer to come and actually, like, if you have to get physical, you have to call the police.
Yeah. Like, observe and report is sort of my understanding.
Like, I don't think that a security guard actually has the authority to apprehend people. They have to go with him willingly, or else they have to leave them alone. I'm not an expert on the law, but
I don't know. And maybe they can.
Maybe I'm wrong.
There was an excessive use of force.
Yes.
And like, if they are allowed to do this, like, I guess when we're talking about allowed, like,
right.
Whether it's legal or not isn't the measure of whether it's ethical or not. So if it is allowed, it shouldn't be. Police don't have adequate level of training to ensure minimum levels of violence. This guy obviously does not have the adequate levels of training to ensure de-escalation and minimal levels of violence.
It's I don't know, not good.
Yeah.
But the second article regarding this was also calling for the charges against the woman in the Freshco arrest to be dropped. Yeah. And the argument says, he says it's 2021, systemic racism is alive in the city of Saskatoon. And violence against Indigenous women needs to stop. So because of the violence involved in the quote unquote arrest, the tribal council wants the charges or the chief of the Saskatoon Tribal Council wants the charges to be dropped. Yeah. I think I got to agree with him. Like, I think that the circumstances surrounding somebody's arrest or what have you should play a role in whether or not these charges stay. But maybe that's just because I'm got a perspective.
We got a perspective. I go back to, like, I know I would not even get caught if I tried shoplifting.
Right. Nobody'd even suspect.
I'm not good. I wouldn't be good at it, but so, like, maybe I would. So, but, like, the number of times I have, whatever doesn't get swiped properly and it beeps as I'm leaving, and they just wave at me and do the thing, right? Like,
yeah.
If I wanted to, I could go buy $20 worth of stuff and steal $50 worth of stuff and walk right out of there. I could do like the whole put stuff in the bottom of the cart. Like, there's all of those, like, I could easily get away with it and it wouldn't be an issue. And even if I did get caught, they're not pressing charges against me.
No.
Like, if I got caught, there's no way there would be any sort of charges laid. Like, I certainly wouldn't be tackled in the parking lot. I could say, "Oh, oops, I forgot. I was just carrying it. I was going to pay for that. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, that's right.
And if the police showed up, and it could be obvious, it could be on camera that obviously wasn't true. I could say, if I go to court, I am going to say I was planning on paying for this all along. I hadn't left the store yet or whatever, right? Like, and at that point, they're not going to charge. They're going to say you're not allowed back in the store. They're going to, do whatever.
But yeah, you're definitely not going to actually have to face these charges like that.
And like, again, if I was tackled like that, I would be getting apologies. I would be getting free frickin' groceries for life. Like, if I was treated that way, there is like, I would not, me being charged would not be on the table.
No, that's right. It would be, like you say, the roles would reverse completely.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Because then it would be, at that point, the power dynamic shifts, and then the security guard is the one who's in the hot seat. Yeah. So anyways, it's, it's systemic, right? They talk about this as a bigger issue. This isn't just this one woman and this one security guard. It's indicative of a larger issue. Yeah. And I understand I understand that many of the people who think, oh, well, she should still be charged because she broke the law, have this idea that the law should be applied regardless of race or regardless of circumstances. Like the law should be blind. And the problem is it's not. The problem is it's already not. Yeah. So it's the idea that, oh, we shouldn't just let someone off because of circumstances. We should still apply things in a level manner. It is a bullshit argument, because you're not starting from a level playing field to begin with. So.
That's right. Yeah. So the next one,
I got insight onto this one before it became a news story.
Okay, so this is all we have right now is a Twitter thread, right? Yeah. Dr. Kyle, our go-to person on COVID, has been swatted.
Yeah.
He had the RCMP come to his house.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
His and my kid played D&D together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like not in person. We're
right,
doing, it's virtual Dungeons and Dragons right now, because he's in Saskatoon and we're in Regina, and both of us understand COVID exists. But yeah, no. He is an amazing human being, and we are lucky to have him in the province. And he dealt with this with grace and aplomb. And it is bullshit that it happened to him. And that is a house with many children in it.
So somebody chose to attempt to terrorize him and his family because they disagree with him on something that he knows more about them on, one can assume. I guess we don't technically know it's COVID related, but he's very outspoken regarding COVID. And this has been, he's gotten some negative reactions from conservatives in the province, and not even like Sask Party supporters, but like the anti-maskers and the anti-COVID people.
Yeah.
So the informed assumption is that this was somebody like that who chose to terrorize his family.
And you know, he acknowledges, you know, his own privilege, that, you know, this, you know, worse things happen to others. And if something like this happened to me, I'd probably be saying the same thing too, right? Like the acknowledging that there's, you know, he still is a you know, white, middle-aged, middle-class man with a lot of privileges. So, and he's acknowledging that. That doesn't make it any less terrorizing. So,
no, that's right. Somebody still wanted to do this to hurt him and his family. So,
yeah,
I don't know if there's much else to say about that.
People are shitty, and that's fucking awful. There,
it is.
I'll summarize.
That's a good summary. There was a city council kind of community wellness committee meeting.
Yeah.
On what should have been a routine agreement with a ban on conversion therapy.
Yeah.
But instead turned into both a bigoted platform for bigots to promote pseudoscience and misinformation, as well as about not just conversion therapy, but also transgender people and the issues surrounding trans children. And we even got a city councilor who, without saying it overtly, did compare being gay to pedophilia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
no, it was over. Like it wasn't this wasn't a dog whistle.
Yeah,
this was.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. She did say, like, she was asking a delegate a question and she said it. She said, like, what about, an older person who wants to have, who is attracted to children? She compared them. So,
it is frustrating. I was upset when there were a couple councillors in Saskatoon who voted against the motion there.
Right.
I am significantly more angry this time around in Regina. Again, I was saying this about Trina Shaw back in February. I had been friends with Trina on social media. We'd had enough, number of personal, we were not friends in real life. But we were friends through social media. She posted she posted an article in support of a media personality who was fairly famous for being transphobic and homophobic. I took time before I posted anything, made sure it was very, very polite, and said, "Hey, I would like to get some clarification. You have previously stated that you are in support of diversity and inclusion, and that this was part of your platform when running for city council. How do you reconcile that with publicly supporting someone who is openly transphobic and homophobic?" And she blocked me and deleted the comment. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, that's a sign, right? Because people make mistakes, right? Like, yep. I had a couple people over the last few weeks who posted something about Prince Philip, and you're like, hey, just so you know, he was a horrible racist, and a awful human being, said some pretty horrible things. And they're like, oh fuck, I didn't know that. I just thought he was the cute old man who was married to the queen. I'm like,
right.
And then, oh shit, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, right? And that's all it takes, right? Like, there's no expectation that everyone know everything about everyone they ever have talked about or admired. Right. But that was a bad sign, and I've seen nothing but more evidence of that over the intervening months. And then for her to compare homosexuality to pedophilia is just one more, there was one more step down that path. She apologized afterwards, right, in a somewhat half-hearted apology, but it was a better apology than a lot of apologies, but I still don't buy it, right? Like, I'm still on the edge going, oh, well, I mean, we'll see what your behavior is like after this, right? Absolutely. And that's the thing is, it's, are you sorry you did it, or are you sorry you got caught?
Right. Are you sorry because there's outrage and it's aimed at you? Yeah.
And one of the and again, personal bias coming in. One of the reasons I think it's sorry you got caught is because when the behavior was pointed out to you previously, when it wasn't in a public forum, when it was just one person privately tapping you on the shoulder and letting you know that what you were saying was problematic, you didn't apologize then. You silenced them and hid the evidence. So
doesn't bode well for
when you only apologize when you're caught but do the same behavior and don't apologize when you're not caught. One of the other points that was addressed, and again, and conflict, or not conflict, but like obviously biased, because I was involved with the drafting of the response by Queen City Pride to it as well. But so one of the things that had been addressed as well is the fact that there wasn't a point of order addressed by the chair of the meeting, and that gets talked about in Kat's letter as well. Both, so that Kat is not directly related. I don't want to imply she's directly related to Queen City Pride. Her letter and our response was separate. But is the idea that like even though the chair wasn't being problematic in and of himself, the fact that there were off-topic points being allowed to be raised is in and of itself problematic as well. And when there are conversations like this, allowing people to come up and start talking about gender affirming healthcare, and somehow conflating it with conversion therapy is problematic. Like the chair needs to step in and say, "Hey, no, like point of order. That is not what we're talking about here. This is not the time or place to have that conversation." In the same way they would as if we were having a city council meeting on changing school zone speed limits. If someone showed up and started talking about business licenses in the downtown core, you would say, "Hey, no, like that's a different meeting."
Don't bring that up here. Bring that up then.
Yeah. And it's the same with this. Like there was a whole bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with the topic at hand. And the fact that it was allowed to continue is not okay. And
the plain fact is that the anti LGBT delegates were spreading misinformation and pseudoscience, and they were intentionally spreading bigotry, and the city council was their platform to do it. And it's ridiculous that this is like, there were people that weren't even from Regina who were speaking. It's absurd.
Yep. No, there's so much that was frustrating with it. It's incorrect information, lies, off-topic comments, and I intentionally misgendering people that they were talking to and about.
So Paul Deshane, who generally live tweets these things, he also does the podcast, the Queen City Improvement Bureau.
Okay.
And this most recent episode, they talk about this issue in city council. And they mentioned on that show that there were like one of the excuses that Shaw used for her perspective was that she had talked to the wrong people, or she had taken in information from those she was around. And before this meeting, many of the city council members had met with people from religious communities that were anti-LGBT and didn't communicate with any members of the LGBT community.
Yeah.
So if you're just getting this one perspective and you're not getting the other perspective, then of course you're going to have the wrong information.
Yeah.
Especially when that side has an agenda that is against the facts.
Yeah, and this seems so cut and dry to me. I have a hard time being objective on it because I'm not. There
is no objective on there is no other perspective that is legitimate in my from what I can see.
Yeah.
You either harm people or you don't.
Yep.
And the city council, whether they knew ahead of time or not, they harm people.
Yeah. So while I'm not optimistic regarding Councillor Shaw, I have hope for the other members of council who were involved in the meeting that they will learn and grow from this. And I may be being naive, but I believe they will. I believe they are going to take the time to learn what they need to learn, and get a greater understanding of of what's off topic. And that partially, does come from it's a new council.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, but
one of the things that has been mentioned is that I think his name is John Findura. He's the city councilor for my area, but he was saying similar things to what Tarina Shaw was saying, and he was of the similar perspective, but he's getting a pass because she was so bad.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm pissed at him too.
So we absolutely got to we have to make sure that we mention that Findura was just as bad and is just as wrong as she is, but just isn't getting the pushback or the.
I think hers it was the comparison to pedophilia that set hers apart.
Yeah, that's right. And listening to it, when I was listening to it, I was yelling at my car radio. So I understand how people feel. You can find us at anchor.fm/FromManyPeoples. Our Twitter is at skpoliticspod. Our Facebook is facebook.com/FromManyPeoplesStrengthPod. And you can email us at FromManyPeoples@gmail.com or buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/FromManyPeoples. Thank you for joining me, David.
Thank you for organizing everything and having everything so well laid out. I get to just show up and talk. So you do all the hard work. I appreciate it.
Right on.
All right, take care.